Exactly. Like, I know. Yeah. They can be. Yeah. I'm just. Okay. But I saw that. Yeah. What you want? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Now, and.
Yeah. You know what he did? He just looked here.
That's probably very nice. No, no. That's fine.
Yeah, you should. All right, let's go. Yes. So we'll talk about this together and then I'll collect it from you. I think this is a really good opportunity. Hopefully you're doing this in your paper, right? You're taking a character in a film. You're looking at all the different things that they're showing, coming up with a diagnosis, and we're thinking about causes and treatments, exactly what you're doing in your final paper, right? That's due today. So let's get a list going for number 2. Let's I'm gonna write it up here, try and paraphrase it so we keep it short. But there should be a bunch of different things that you saw in Arnie throughout the film. Anyone want to give me one to start? Yeah. Okay. Let's say maybe like speech fixation. I'm just going to try and shorten it. That's perfect. Great. Love it. Yeah.
Doesn't comprehend verbally delivered commands and directions.
Okay. So like
Struggle to do activities and like of daily living.
okay, so we got some like poor comprehension and then struggling, let's say with like daily activities. Okay, what else? Yeah, I'm just gonna work my way up. Yeah.
Needs close supervision.
Yeah, he definitely does, right? So he needs revision. Okay, yeah,
Odd-hand and body movements and unusual reaction to stimulus.
sure. Okay, so we got unusual reactions and then you said like, we'll say some like movement kind of related things, right? Like some abnormalities and repetition. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so some inappropriate affect. His reactions to things aren't always like appropriate to the situation. Yeah.
Confused, but like, doesn't know empathy, sympathy, like can't.
Empathy, maybe.
Can't read a room.
Okay, we can put that like.
React.
Okay, and that's kind of here too, but we could put like maybe it's like his social cues are a little bit
Yeah.
off, right? Like so poor social cues or like understanding. Okay, yeah. Yeah, he doesn't necessarily follow them very well, does he? So we can add not following instructions. Okay, what else? I'll go behind you and then come here. Yeah.
He's constantly standing and with his hair growing, he puts figures together.
Yeah, and that might be kind of these things like hair, fingers, right? He's kind of got some like movement related things that are constant. Yeah.
Doesn't really seem to consequences.
Yeah, that's a really good one too. So let's say poor consequences, like his understanding of them. Okay, yeah,
I put like his eye contact.
okay, like not so great.
Yeah, and just
Okay, yeah,
and another one I noticed was like an ability to like cope with changes in routine. Like
Okay.
when his brother gave him the bathroom punches, he just stayed in the bathroom. He didn't do any, like he didn't try to do anything to get over there.
okay, so struggles with change in routine. Do you have a different one?
Yeah, that was what I was gonna say.
Ah, she sold it, right? Do you have anything else you want to add? Do you have the floor? Anything else you had on your list that we don't have up here?
I was gonna say like, which we already said it, but his inability to like emotionally regulate something.
Yeah.
Trigger. I don't know, the big one was like, when the siblings were fighting, And then it feels like our last day, he just started like screaming like that was dead.
Yeah, okay, so we could say he gets kind of triggered emotionally very easily, right? His emotions aren't regulated very well. Yeah, yeah. I like that. Fixated interests. Okay, yeah.
I was thinking more just like the classic one, he's kind of different, and he was sitting without the bar, and he was sitting there and we all there, so he had to find something, doing something like talking or making noises.
Yeah, making noises, talking, counting. There's a lot of counting. We could add that too. This is a great list. Anything else you want to add? Yeah.
I was like stemming,
Yeah,
so he does like a lot.
right. Okay. Anything else? Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of with the consequences, right? But we could add like danger, right? Obviously climbing that water tower, super dangerous, right? But no regard for it whatsoever. Yeah. Maybe, right? He does have some like kind of movement related things that are very typical, like of things you would see with like autistic spectrum disorder with the counting and stemming kind of stuff and the repetitive movements. But yeah, so we have a lot of like movement related stuff going on with him for sure. Anything else that we don't have up here? Anything else that we want to add? Looking to see if I have anything else on. Anything? I mean, it's kind of implied, but one thing I would say, he can't take care of himself. Maybe that's the supervision piece. Okay, it's a great list. Yeah.
It's not in the film, but I'm sure he probably had issues beating milestones as he was growing up.
Yeah, you're probably right. Right. We didn't see that, but I think given the fact that he's almost 18
Yeah.
and he hasn't met a lot of them, like we can definitely see that. So milestones. Anything else? Really happy with this, but anything else? Right, just to make sure. Yeah.
I seem to have like some sensory issues
Okay.
with loud noises and stuff else, actually.
Here's some sensory stuff. Okay, this is fantastic, right? So a lot of things, right? And as I was telling you, like this should be like a good bulleted list. And if you don't have all these, you're welcome to add. But let's look at then number 3. And this is where I wanted you to start kind of taking what you have learned and applying it. And this again should be what you're doing with your character. What are some of the let's not explain them yet, but what are some of the diagnoses that you came up with for him? Give me what you got. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna write that over here. So autistic spectrum disorder, ASD. What else? Sure. Let's see how many acronyms we can get, right? Right. We got 2 so far. Yeah. Right. Oh, one more. ADD. Okay. Okay, so we have autistic spectrum disorder and ADHD, intellectual developmental disorder. Anyone have anything else? Anything else, even if it's not the whole picture that you think we should add? Yeah.
I initially thought he had Down syndrome until my ex-wife corrected me.
Okay. Right, but okay, so that might be something that you see as well. But these are kind of the big 3 that I would say are good for Arnie or like have some relevance to him. So just like with a lot of the movies, a lot of you picked and shows, the media loves to blend things together, right? It makes it a little confusing, but in this case, I think it makes a good spot for discussion with Arnie because I don't think that he fits one thing perfectly. So if you have any of those 3, I think you can feel pretty good. But let's talk about the 3 of them. So how many of you thought that maybe there was some level of autistic spectrum disorder by show of hands? A lot of you. So why autism? What are your thoughts? Yeah, go back to it. Yeah.
Oh, we can't see me pretty, like obviously they could, but to him, them saying like, they don't see me in the tree, like he didn't think they would see him actually.
Right.
Like sarcasm and stuff like that.
Yeah, just kind of completely not able to understand what's going on in the situation that way. Did you have another thought? Yeah. Right. So we're seeing a lot of those like movement related things, repetitive stuff, right? The language kind of things, the counting, right? There's a lot of very behaviors that are very typical of somebody with autistic spectrum disorder. Yeah. Yeah.
I've seen there
Yeah, and his fixation with the counting, his fixation with the water tower, like he definitely has some very fixated interests, right? And I think that's something that's also very reminiscent of this. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Another thing in support of this. Anyone else in support of like what other things? Anything else pointing toward ASD, autistic spectrum disorder? Yeah. Okay. And that actually fits a different one, right? Which we'll get to in a little bit. But yeah, he definitely is not acting his age, right? Yeah.
Really big ones like a change, one is like a change in routine because a lot of times.
Right.
The office and children had to work is that we had to have a schedule and it would have to be the same time everybody came in for therapy, otherwise it'd be like a month down or they get really upset and then it would be like an explosive thing.
Yeah, kind of that inability to adapt and be flexible with a schedule. He doesn't have that severely, but he does show it at times, right? Like especially with the bathtub, for example, right? Yeah.
In the beginning when they were dinner together at the table and everything, I used to babysit on this girl since I was like 8 years old and very well with everything. The one thing I noticed is when the mom started getting mad and not or possibly much, started getting on the table, he getting mad and frustrated, but he didn't understand that. And he thought it was a joke and a game, so he encountered with it and started doing it back.
Yeah.
Which made everybody else frustrated.
Right. Yeah. Again, that repeating and those behaviors and like kind of reacting that intensely to the environment. Very typical with this. Yeah.
Mine isn't like in favor of it, but the thing that like kind of made it obvious that he didn't have Down syndrome was the lack of facial features
Yeah.
that in the movie, like he was pretty normal looking. You know?
Mhm. Yeah, and someone with Down syndrome does tend to have kind of an elongated face, and obviously it's a movie, so maybe there's not all of that.
So yeah.
But yeah.
that's- Makeup.
Yeah, and interesting Down syndrome, which is another thing that can fall into this category of trisomy 21. Often you see somebody who's very sweet, very loving, very kind, and also very delayed, and some physical features that can go with it. And so it's not out of the realm of possibility, but I don't think it fits perfectly.
Yeah.
I won't shame you for it like you were,
Yeah.
but I mean, I think it's close, right? So interesting with this. So autistic spectrum disorder, it used to just be called autism, but it's called autistic spectrum disorder because there is a huge spectrum. If you've ever heard someone say they're on the spectrum, they're talking about autism. Right now, this can be something that's very, very mild to something that's severely profound. Interesting with this like disorder or umbrella of disorders, I'm not sure that it fits him perfectly. Right. So all of the things that you just mentioned are great examples of how this could fit him, but he doesn't show a lack of responsiveness at all. He's actually very responsive. He's very sweet. He interacts with Becky. He interacts with Gilbert, his mother, right? He has really good language. His language isn't age appropriate, but oftentimes people who are on the spectrum might have, it can be where they have very little language. Now, again, it's a spectrum, so it can be someone who's very highly functioning, but he does show the motor movements, the repetitive rigid behavior, the stemming kind of behaviors. You see a lot of things that are very characteristic, but not everything. And it's not everyone, but a lot of individuals with ASD don't do well with touch. He does fine with that. He's very like hugging and loving. He communicates pretty well, even if it's, again, not age appropriate. So it doesn't fit him perfectly. He has elements of it, but I don't think it fits the whole picture perfectly. Yeah.
You said that he does well with touch.
Yeah.
But I think like another thing that would like kind of come up with that is like normally when you get slapped, you kind of don't have the reaction of just like sitting there like, oh
Yeah.
like what am I supposed to okay.
Yeah.
You
He
know?
just
He just kind of was like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
And he just kind of like ran away and was like, my brother just slapped me. What do I do?
Mhm.
So I think like he didn't know, there was like a lack of responsiveness there because
Yeah.
he didn't know how to respond to being slapped by the person that he trusts the
For
most in the
sure.
world. So I think that was a sign of a lack of responsiveness in that.
Yeah, and it's such a hard scene to watch, right? Like you can understand why Gilbert would hit that point, right?
Yeah.
Like so much frustration,
Yeah.
and yet it's so sad at the same time.
Yeah.
Typically lack of responsiveness in this regard, like I think I can see, I think that's a good example too, but it's oftentimes just a lack of awareness of the environment around you and responding to the environment, which could be on a spectrum, so that could fit. I think this fits fine. If you have this one, you can feel fine about that. But I do think that IDD also fits pretty well, which we'll talk about next. One thing I want to mention just while we're here, how many of you have heard of Asperger's before? Okay, a lot of you. Okay, so Asperger's used to be its own distinct disorder. Okay, so Asperger's before the DSM-5 was a condition where people had autism-like symptoms, but they had very high levels of functioning and intelligence. Typically, they were only impaired socially. So someone who had poor social cues, poor social understanding, oftentimes just not aware of things around them enough to be appropriate. Asperger's is no longer its own unique, distinct disorder. It's been absorbed into the spectrum. Okay, so it's now part of autistic spectrum disorder. I'll be curious to see if it stays that way because it kind of has its own presentation. But for now, it is part of this. So that might be something I ask you on that last exam. Is Asperger's its own unique disorder? Not anymore, right? So I just want to mention that while we're here. So again, there are a lot of elements that fit him here, but some that don't, right? So I want to, we'll talk about the other disorders too. Yeah.
We'll be going back over slides.
What was that? No, so we're just kind of covering a little bit as it relates to the movie. Yeah, your job with this one was a little more flipped, right, with this one. Any other comments with this before we move to the other one? Kind of covering the big disorders as it relates to the movie. I do think if I had to put my money somewhere, I'd put it here. And I think, again, if you put either IDD or ASD, that's fine. Either one is fine. I think they very much blend the two in the film. But what puts me here is somebody who has IDD doesn't have the intellectual capacity of their age. That like fits Arnie pretty well, right? He's 17, almost 18 or almost 18 at the end, right? And he acts like a very, very young child. Okay, so his behaviors remind me of my kids when they were 4, right? And like some of the stuff he says, like even at 4, if I left my kids in the bathtub, which I wouldn't have done, but if I had, right, they would know to wash themselves and get out. Like, would they do a good job doing it? Probably not, but they would have gotten out of the bathtub, right? So even at 4, I feel like they in some ways could do more than he could at 17, right? So the fact that he can't take care of himself, needs supervision, that his reactions to things aren't always appropriate, right? Some of his behaviors and lack of understanding are very typical of a young child, right? And so for me, if I had to put my money somewhere, I'd probably say like moderate, like IDD, somewhere in here. But again, they kind of blend this and ASD together. So either one would be fine. Anyone have thoughts to support this? Any other thoughts with this one? Like leaning toward IDD, or did anyone put this one? Yeah. So typically you would pick one or the other, depending, because they're both very like global disorders, right? So they're going to be something that's very like global and encompassing. So typically you would pick the one that fits best. You could, like any other group, say like NOS, not otherwise specified, that they have a developmental disorder, but it doesn't fit neatly. But typically people would be in one category or the other. And it might be hard to tell, at least initially as well.
This is the kind of question that I realized from the studies.
Sure.
I know she's very good with autism, but she also showed a lot of signs of IDD.
Yeah.
Kind of nice.
Yeah. And again, like we have these disorders, right? But a lot of people have more than one thing going on. A lot of people don't fit neatly into a disorder, right? And, you know, what the funny thing is that one day we sometimes come up with a new one and like, oh, that fits perfectly, right? But for now, there might be times where people don't fit neatly. Right. And so if somebody's showing a lot of signs of ASD, we might diagnose them there, or it could be here. Right. And there's a lot of overlap between the two. There definitely is, which you can see in Arnie's character as well. Any other thoughts here at all? Again, I think if you have either of those, that's fine. You know, ADHD, if we go back here, which was come up several times in this class, we've talked about some elements of this. And again, as a side note, there is no ADD anymore, right? Always, that's like a pet peeve of mine. My mother-in-law, I always pick on my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law, so sweet, but I can't help it. Yesterday, she's all like, oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't listening. I have ADD. I'm like, 1, ADD isn't real, and 2, you're just a bad listener. But, you know, like, ADD is no longer a thing, right? ADD was a disorder for a long time. It's been absorbed into ADHD. So with ADHD, what we get is we can specify the type. Somebody might have a more like attention related issues. They might have more hyperactivity, right? We kind of specify which one it is, or it can be both. But ADHD, we see some signs of this in Arnie. I don't think it captures the big global issues with him, but we definitely do see some stuff here. Was that a
Yeah.
hint?
It's just- My doctor still diagnosed me with ADD. Said
Yeah.
hyperactive.
right?
So, I mean, I still have ADD and I know that it bothers people, but
Uh-huh.
that was the label that I was given in the kids.
Yeah.
And it's-
Totally.
And like, yeah, I've like, when I was talking to a psychologist at the hospital, he's like, you don't have ADD, you have ADHD, and like, but I don't have the hyperactive part.
I don't have the H. Leave the H out. I don't need an extra letter, right? Yeah, and so what we do is we say ADHD and then we specify. But a lot of people, if you were diagnosed with it when you were younger, it was ADD at the time, right? So it makes sense that you would by default call it that. Right? Was that a
Yeah, I was just gonna say that there's like, I was just gonna share about the different like subtypes.
Yeah.
Of ADHD now and how specific it's gotten.
Yeah, and my daughter Emma, I've always thought she has had ADHD. It's something that kind of runs in my family. My partner has ADHD. She was diagnosed with it as a child back when it was ADD, and took medication for it and all these things. It's something a lot of members of my family struggle with. It's definitely a real thing. A lot of people use it as a crutch, but it is an actual disorder that people do struggle with. My daughter Emma could never sit still in school, right? Like ever. Like she's always spinning in circles and texting people and getting in trouble. Like she got in trouble. I think it was my other class. Did I tell you that she got in trouble for she was pretending to be the devil? Did I tell you all that? And hexing people. And I had to go talk to the principal about it. He thought it was funny, thankfully. But then she got in trouble. Same thing when she was in kindergarten for pretending to be a banana and trying to eat the other bananas in her class. Like, I mean, fun things that to me, I laughed, right? Like that's hilarious. But she's always had a very hard time like controlling her ability to pay attention and to sit quietly. Now, this is something a lot of kids struggle with. You go from like free reign to having to sit in a classroom and be quiet and pay attention. It's normal to struggle with that, but there's a different level of struggling that's present in somebody who has ADHD, right? It's another level of severity. Yeah.
When I was younger, I was diagnosed with ADD.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you struggle with that a lot, like you're both very different in girls and boys. So
Yeah. Yeah. And it can look very different traditionally from like boys to girls, right? And not always. And it's a little like obviously oversimplified, but it can look very different. And then it can look different at different ages. It's interesting. They change the name of disorders all the time, right? And this is one that was changed and does have subtypes, just like we changed multiple personalities to dissociative identity disorder, right? We do this constantly. Yeah.
So, actually, music majors, so how to do like a re-evaluation of my ADHD. And he's like, yeah, you definitely have like adult ADHD.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to for your life. Like, most people have girl, like, but unfortunately you didn't. And I'm like,
Yeah.
it sucks because if I don't take the medicine, like I can't get anything done because I've opened the one activity and the next I'll just like completely forget what I was doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really common. And some people outgrow it, like you mentioned, like it can be something that you outgrow. It stays in childhood and that's it. And others, it persists through, adulthood. There's some great TikToks on this of like people like talking about like what it feels like to have this and like what they hear versus what other people hear. Like I should have saved some of them. I hear them and then I'm like, oh, that's great. And then I forget to save it. But there's some really great examples of it on there. This can be something that makes it difficult to focus. Like my partner, if we're out to eat and there's stimuli around us, like she can't hear me. Like it's all, I'll be like, hey, right? like constantly, like I'm here, pay attention to me. Like I want attention, right? That's just me though. But whenever I try and talk to her, if she's doing something else, I have to wait, right? And I've gotten really good at waiting because she'll be on TikTok, for example, right? And I'll try and tell her something and I can just tell that she just totally didn't hear me. And I'll be like, when you're done with that, I want to talk to you, I'm like, I'll just wait. I'll just sit there and wait because I know she can't do two things at once. She can't process both. There are some differences in the way that people who have this process information from people who don't, right? And that's how we know that it is, obviously something that's real. Though again, like anything else that exists on a spectrum, some people have this very mildly and other people have it where it definitely impacts them. I'm gonna go back there.
I was gonna say, like, when you're saying getting overstimulated.
Yeah.
So does my best friend, but I would say we presented very differently.
Yeah.
She was definitely very hyperactive. If you're in a conversation with her, it's almost impossible to get a word in, because if you say something else, she'll interrupt you. And I'll be like, girl, stop.
Right.
Like, until I go mute.
Yeah.
And I'm like disassociating, but literally at dinner, I was at dinner last night with like a bunch of my friends, and they were like, "What's usually talking so much? Like, what's wrong?" And I was like, "The music's are playing. There's too many people
Yeah.
in here, and like I'm so hungry." And I was like, I literally keep seeing it.
Yeah.
Like it's like everything's in cooler to me, and like I'm just freaked out right now. And it is really interesting to compare like me and my best friend. And she was like, "Oh, I feel like we both have ADHD, but we both act so differently when it comes to like getting tasks done." But yeah, hers are definitely more practice. But I was gonna say, for anyone in here that does have ADHD or thinks they might, there is an Adderall shortage and prescription medication shortage
Yeah.
for ADHD currently, and I've found that, not to get all holistic, whatever, but I found that drinking like chaga mushroom coffees with lion's mane helps me so much. So much. And I gave my, I like when she slept over, my best friend, I gave her a cup and she was like, "Why is my brain quiet?" And I was like, yeah. I use gosh, I'm forgetting the name, but it's like a lion's mane chaga mushroom. It's like magic, not magic. It does really help me.
Yeah.
And like if I drink like my mushroom coffee in the morning, I would be able to get like a little work done. Sure. Whereas I'll like stare at work and be like, "What's happening here?" Usually. So it helped her too, like very soon. So
Yeah.
I definitely recommend that to people because there is a shortage of prescription drugs right now.
Yeah. There's so many shortages, right? There's like a shortage of one thing after another, after another, after another. It's so hard to deal with. It's medication, it's food, it's everything, right? And interesting with this, and we talked about this before, you mentioned it's coffee, right? Like so it has caffeine, I'm assuming, in it. Very common for people who have ADHD. So the idea is actually that you are understimulated, right? And so I know it feels like you're overstimulated, but it's thought that in your brain you're understimulated. So we're going to give you a stimulant to calm you down, right? And so people who have ADHD actually are calmed down by stimulants rather than sped up or like stimulated by them. So Ritalin and Adderall are stimulants, right? And so they calm you down. Very common trick that people with ADHD do is drink caffeine, right? Have a cup of coffee to help you calm down and focus. My nephew eats chocolate covered espresso beans, and he's always done that, right? That's his way of like, rather than taking medication, he'll have a couple of those throughout the day when he feels like too agitated, and it calms him down, right? My partner who has ADHD, when she drinks a cup of coffee, it makes her sleepy, right? Like, and so she can drink a cup of coffee in bed and go to sleep. If I drink coffee after 2, I'm screwed. I won't sleep that night, right? And so everybody reacts differently, but traditionally people with ADHD are calmed down by stimulants. And it's almost like an informal diagnostic thing, right? It's not something that you're going to find in the DSM, but it's something you see a lot. People with this disorder tend to be calmed by stimulants rather than stimulated by them. Not always, but it's a very common thing to see.
So this last night, so I was drinking a beer and he was like, "Those make you feel like super tired and like, don't they have any caffeine?" I was like, "I realized."
Not for me.
Sleep.
Yeah.
And so last night we tested it, he was like, "I'm making 2 cups of coffee, trying to see what happens." And I fell asleep faster than him.
Yeah.
And it was like, yeah, that is definitely it.
Yeah. And it's not everybody, but you see it a lot. It's actually a very common thing that you will see, that people will sometimes self-medicate this way. Like it's a creative way of calming yourself down without having to take medication, but it's just something you see, that you react differently. Like you could have 2 cups of coffee and go to sleep. The average person, that's not gonna end well, right? Like you're gonna be up all night, because it blocks the adenosine and then you can't sleep and so on.
Question about the drugs. So they tried to put me on ADHD medication at one point, but it felt like they just really killed my personality.
Yeah,
It felt like the first line.
yeah.
Really.
Yeah, unfortunately, like any drug has a side effect, but these can have intense side effects in Adderall and Ritalin and some of the others that are used. I mean, they can affect your personality. Of course they can, right? Yeah,
Feel right.
yeah.
Felt Pretty.
Like, and some people report feeling like in a fog, like in a
That's what I
mental
thought.
fog. Yeah, and that's pretty common, right? So you think about like if you have ADHD and you're constantly overstimulated. Now, all of a sudden you've been brought down here. It can feel like you're sedated. It can feel like you're in a fog. People report the same on antidepressants as well. Like it's medications can sometimes do that where they make the world around you feel very different than it did typically. Right?
Pretty much the kind of-
Sure. Mhm. Yeah.
That's-
And sometimes different medications you'll react better to, or might be a dosage thing. It could be sometimes just finding the right dose. But that's not uncommon, right? For any medication, but also definitely for here.
I'm just gonna say, like, during our two partner, Nick really knows that if they try to talk to me, if I'm like right doing schoolwork or I'm like reading, and then they're like keeping with me, I'm like, can you stop? Like, I can't do multiple things at once.
Yeah.
And if it was like, don't snap at me. I'm like, but we've been over this. Like, if you try to talk to me while I'm doing something else, like, it's not gonna work. And so finally my grandma just like running top on my shoulder and she's like, once you're done, and I'm like, okay, just give me like 5 minutes. I'll get back to you.
Yeah, I'm laughing as you said that because my daughter, my daughter Paisley, I can give her fish and dip, right? I can give her 15 instructions. I can be like, okay, I want you to go take a shower, clean your room. Like, no, I wouldn't ask her to do all this, but like, get your pajamas out, get dressed for softball, pack your bag, get your water. Like, I can give her 10 things and she'll go do all 10. Right? My daughter Emma, I give her 2 things, neither of them are getting done.
Yep.
Right? So if I look at her, I'd be like, Emma, look at me. I want you to get out your pajamas. What did I tell you to do? Right? And she'll be like, pajamas. Like, okay. 5 minutes later, I'm like, Emma, did you get out your pajamas? No. Go get out your pajamas. And then the second, then I'm like, and then come back to me. She goes and does that. Okay, now I want you to get your softball clothes. Right. And then come back to me. I can only give her one thing at a time. Right. And I know that, right? Like we used to get in fights over it. Now I've figured it out. She's figured it out. But even one instruction, I'm like, did you do your pajamas? No. Why? It's been 10 minutes. It takes 2 seconds, right? Constantly have this battle, but I have to adapt instructions to her because if I give her more than one thing, it's not happening. Right. And so, you know, that's very common. And you see a little bit of that with Arnie. It's not the whole picture, but we see some of it. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, it's frustrating on both sides, right? I will say, yeah. Sure.
Hey, or to myself.
Mhm.
Or I just have to like make sure that he's like looking at me
Right.
to like, you know, I have to make sure that she's sure.
Yeah.
So, I'm like, girl, we need to go see like a therapist, like see, you know, some form of help.
Mhm.
But, gosh,
Yeah, and a lot of people don't, right? Like, and you know, it is a stigmatized disorder, right? Like there's a lot of misunderstanding around ADHD. But it's kind of obvious sometimes when you know someone who has it, you can see it, right? Especially if you're used to seeing it. Was there another? Yeah.
Time blindness.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a nanny for the 3 kids. One of them has like pretty severe ADHD in addition to intermittent explosive disorder. And he has like, the most severe time blindness I've ever like seen. Like he'll spend like 30 minutes on the iPad and we'll be like every 10 minutes I go up, okay, 10-minute warning, and I have to tap him on the shoulder,
Yeah.
make eye contact. Okay, look me in the eyes, okay, 10 minutes, I come back up, he's like, that was 2 minutes. So it's like really interesting
Yeah.
the way in which like the different brain structures can affect like our perception of time.
Yeah.
Wild.
For sure. It is interesting, right? I see that all the time with my daughter as well. It'll be like 2 minutes, you know, and there's no awareness of that at all. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I do that too.
Should like make really well in this, otherwise we'd be locked out.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Sometimes it helps. Sometimes it does. I set timers for my daughter and she just ignores them.
Gonna happen every time.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
this is definitely a common childhood disorder, right? We see pieces of it in Arnie. This is something that there are a lot of treatments for, mainly medication. But let's go back to this. So let's look at so we talked about some of our ideas for a diagnosis for number 3. Again, I think if you put any of those 3, you're in good shape. Though I do definitely think you should have IDD or ASD as one of them. That's there is a bigger global issue than just inattentiveness and hyperactivity for Arnie. But let's look at number 4. What are some possible, like we might have to speculate a little bit here, but what are some possible contributing factors or causes that we might wonder about? Yeah.
She smoked.
Yeah.
So maybe he was, maybe she smoked during the pregnancy.
Sure.
Or drank during the pregnancy, or he was like premature.
Yeah. All great things that could possibly have been present, right? We don't know, but definitely possible. Yeah.
If they're
Yeah, especially like ASD and IDD and things like that. Yeah, there might be a genetic element to it, which we wouldn't know, but it's totally possible. Yeah.
Sheltered life.
Yeah.
He didn't have the ability to school, so he couldn't learn how to use social cues, he couldn't like learn how to kind of cope with like his everyday like changing routine. So he was
Yeah.
like, they had a set routine for him, but they doted on him at the same time. So he could really like learn from his mistakes or kind of like doing the things that I'm would be able to do.
Yeah, you should have had something on your sheet about family dynamics, right? The family is definitely fueling this. The environmental stuff, there's a lot of environmental stuff for him that on the plus side, we could maybe do some stuff with for number 5, but there are a lot of environmental factors. Yeah.
Arnie's mom can take care of it.
Yeah.
The siblings have to, he could feel neglected, which is why he has to climb the water.
Act out.
The electric, whatever that time is.
Mhm.
He feels that he needs to act out to get attention from everyone. Like,
Yeah.
that's a big role of like the main issue.
For sure, right? The family dynamics, the mom can't care for him, the siblings are caring for him without any probably education as to what to do or awareness of what to do. They're kids themselves, right? Anything else? Yeah. Yeah. Right, and I don't know if you picked up on it, they're a little cryptic about it, but he hung himself in the basement, right? He committed suicide. And so clearly he had some stuff going on. We don't know what, but there could be like a family dynamic with that as well. He could have had some kind of childhood injury. I always wonder, right? He likes to climb the tree so much. Did he climb? Did he fall? Right? Like, I don't know, in my mind, I always wonder about that. Like, we don't know. There's a lot of things to speculate. Yeah. Yeah.
He seems to have a really hard time understanding and coping with. I think like that could contribute to his like ability to regulate emotions or and getting very triggered.
Sure.
Is like these underlying things he's never just felt.
Yeah. Yeah. Some childhood traumas, right? That he isn't dealing with. Yeah.
feel like if him falling off or something were to cause or contribute a significant contributing factor to this, then there's no way.
Probably not, right?
Like she knows it's climbing the tree, she knows it's climbing.
Yeah.
Well, actually, at the beginning, like kind of at the beginning, he was eating his time at the window and.
Get him down from there, yeah. Yeah, get him down from there, right? And so maybe not, right? And it might be some apathy on her part of like, she can't get up to go do anything about it. Like, it's hard to say. It's also, I don't want to steal your thought. Go ahead. Yeah, dad's in there, right? Yeah, right. Some awareness of that, right? And so that could have been a factor. It's obviously summer, right? But we don't see anything related to schooling. There's not a lot of like stimulation. It's not the best environment, small town. Not that that's necessarily bad. I mean, you couldn't pay me to live there, right? Too tiny of a town, right? But they do have an ice cream place, so it could be worse, right? Like, I could think of worse. But maybe some of the environmental stuff with that as well could play a role. How about number 5? What can we do to help him out? What are some things that we can maybe do to help? Yeah.
Early intervention.
Early intervention. Okay. Yeah. So if we could go back, right? That would be nice if we could go back and maybe do a little bit more when he was younger. Sure. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, right. And I think that, and obviously the mom doesn't, make it through the film, right? But she definitely does seem to coddle him and keep him in that very young state, right? I think those are good ideas. Yeah. Yeah.
Better understands.
Yeah, right. And I think learning some of those things, some skills for him would be amazing. The family coming along too couldn't hurt, right? Like education. Yeah, some family therapy. Yeah.
Higher quality of life. Maybe like going to speech therapy.
Yeah.
That way you can better articulate some emotions.
Mhm.
And then also then like going to a school for kids
Yeah.
with, like mental disabilities and that way you could work at a different place.
Yeah.
But you can still get schooling. Cause I feel like you knew numbers, you just didn't know what order.
Right.
And so like you could definitely learn. Like I think that would definitely be possible.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, and for me, again, going back to the IDD, right? Sometimes people who have like a moderate or mild level of IDD, you can teach them the specific skills to take care of those, right? Like I'm going to show you how to bathe yourself. And we're going to practice it and work on it, and eventually you can, right? And so I think going and learning some of those skills, a better like educational program, something catered to them, would go a long way. And obviously we don't see that because it's summer, but maybe going outside of their town to a bigger like facility or a bigger school with more resources would be helpful. Yeah.
Occupational therapy.
Okay. How do you mean? Like, how would that? What would you do, or what do you think? Yeah.
Take care of yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Right. Like specific tasks, right? Again, could go a long way for him. I think that he could have a potential to be able to do more if he had a better environment. Yeah, and they move at the end, obviously they're going somewhere else, so that might be a positive change. But again, this is what I'm hoping you're doing with your character, right? That you're looking at your character and thinking about, what are some of the things that could contribute, even if I'm speculating? What are some of the things that could help, even if they aren't done in the film or in the show, right? And again, I think a good way to kind of bring that together. So that's hopefully something that you take away from this class, right? That when you look at anyone, whether it's a real person or a fictional person, what are they presenting with? What does this then kind of match? And what are some of the causes and the treatments and things that would go with it? So obviously we didn't cover everything in this chapter. Of all of them, we kind of flipped this one a little bit more. So make sure that you do look over anything that we didn't cover. You obviously have the study guide for the final. And then what we'll do next time is we'll go to the other side of this. We'll talk about disorders of aging, which is chapter 15, and we'll go through that. And then we only have one chapter left after that, which is forensic psychology, kind of a fun one to end with. So I'm going to stop here because we only have 5 minutes left anyway. As you leave today, make sure you bring up your worksheet with your name on it. And then we'll get going on the next chapter when I see you on Monday. Don't forget about the paper. It's due by tonight, okay? Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
Bye. Yeah.